All right, it seems like everyone is talking about LIV Golf's awful ratings for their first event of the season. Even on the PGA Tour, we saw announcers taking a little bit of a low blow shot at it. Definitely some shots fired over there, but we want to break this down because in reality, I don't think it's the whole story. As much as this is a big headline grabber, no doubt, especially for anyone out there who does not want to see LIV succeed, they are leaning hard into this. But like I said, I don't think it's the whole story. So we're going to weigh in on kind of both sides of it. And then later, I want to talk about too, there's like kind of a sneaky little LIV policy change that may have flown under the radar for many, but reading the tea leaves here, I think it might be even bigger news than most people expect. And I have a specific reason why, because what I think that just might indicate.
Okay.
And this was something that Pat Perez kind of let slip on a recent podcast. We're still waiting for official confirmation from LIV, but if this policy change does take place, it just kind of doesn't add up of why LIV would make this change. So it must mean something more. We're going to talk about that in a second. Before we do, we want to thank this week's sponsor, Titleist. And guys, how does the best get better? Now it's your turn to find out with the new 2025 Pro V1 and Pro V1X. And if you're wondering what's new with the new Pro V1 on its 25th, that's right, 25-year anniversary, well, Titleist R&D asked players what they wanted in the new Pro V1 and Pro V1X, and they said more spin on those scoring shots around the green. And both models give players not only that increased spin, but more speed off of the tee. You know, you get a little more control with irons. You know, we still have that low great spin with driver. I personally have been playing Pro V1 for many years now, loving the new feel that I'm getting from this year's model. And one thing I'm going to say here, if you guys haven't checked it out yet, check out that new video on the Titleist YouTube page, Excellence in Process. So they mix in a little bit about the Pro V1, but really it just kind of dives into following a bunch of players and what they've done.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't inspire you, I don't know what does. It made me immediately want to go out and grind on my game.
They're so well done.
Yeah,
they are.
So definitely check that one out. Anyway, let's get into these ratings a little bit here because, like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are just always just kind of looking for that fuel of the fire of whether or not really anything is succeeding.
Any tour.
Right.
Like there'd be TGL haters, LIV haters, PGA Tour haters.
Right. I mean, we're seeing this no doubt with LIV. I mean, with the TGL week in and week out, people watching those Nielsen ratings. Yep. But this one was particularly bad. I mean, kind of embarrassingly bad in a lot of ways. And why it kind of matters is because a lot of people were saying, well, you finally got the broadcast deal you wanted. And again, I'm going to kind of talk about this both from here in the States and also internationally because it varies greatly. I'll give you guys plenty of chances to weigh in the comments. And if you're watching this outside of the States, you definitely have different ways of viewing and viewership. So you guys, by all means, hop in the comments, provide clarity of where you're watching. But here, I mean, this was particularly bad. So it was the first round, and it was their first event, first round.
Yep.
I want to talk a little bit about the broadcast itself because I did think it was interesting seeing them play under the lights.
Love the night golf.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
And I think they did overall, I think they did a good job with the broadcast. I think it was like really well done and all those types of things. So that, whether that's a factor or not, we'll talk about in a second. But this is the first event in Riyadh, and the very first round pulled 12,000 viewers, and what exactly is 12,000 viewers, on average throughout the round. And you look at that number and of course, social media has lit up over it. People are saying more people watch, you name the obscure
good
sport.
Desert Classic.
Right. Well, you name it, like for everything from darts to any other sport, you're saying people watch, more than this. But there's got to be some context applied here.
Yeah.
Right. First of all, yes, they do have their new their deal with Fox, but this was a couple things. One, it was the first round, so it was not on the main Fox broadcast. This was on FS2.
Yep.
FS2, not even FS1.
Not even one. Right.
Right. So again, keep in mind for context, there's actually less households have FS2 here in the United States than the CW, which is where it previously was.
Right.
Which lends itself to possibly a healthy debate of saying, is are they doing the right thing with this broadcast deal, right? If it's me and you're and I don't know what it was going up against on possibly FS1 at that time, but you want your broadcast deal to succeed, I think I would open it up with right out the gate, hitting it on whatever my most powerful broadcast platform is. So you don't have, even if we as we break this down, even if it's not as bad as it sounds, you don't have these optics. You don't have this opportunity for people to blast headlines saying only 12,000 viewers.
Yeah, right. I mean, what was the time difference over there? Do you even know?
Well, that's the other thing that many people wisely pointed out.
Yeah.
We're talking about ratings here in the States. And this was the opening round was 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern time here, which many pointed out, whether it be on social media, Reddit, or otherwise, most Americans are working during that time frame. So it's not, not setting itself up for massive viewership.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So the other thing too is, and again, I kind of got to point out all the reasons why, like I said, this is not necessarily as big of a deal, but then let's also not deny that there's a certain aspect of this that LIV could be worried about and could also learn from. And when I say another thing that's not that big of a deal is that you also have the app, and I think a lot of people will watch LIV streaming through that app. We obviously don't have visibility on those numbers.
Right.
It's not something that they publish. We can only go based on what we hear people talking about. And I hear you guys too, and a lot in the comments saying, I don't watch it on television. I watch it in the app. I believe that there's a way you can watch it ad-free in the app as well. So it might just be a preference point. But regardless, there's no way to skirt around this number of 12,000 total viewers on FS2 during that time.
And am I correct that it won't hit actual Fox until the event in April? I believe it's the first Fox LIV Golf event. So FS2, there's FS1, and there's Fox, which I think Fox will hit a larger audience in the United States.
No doubt. Once it plays
that's
on
a true
Fox,
test, right?
That's going to be our biggest test, and we're going to really be able to see it. So it takes usually about a couple of days for those Nielsen ratings to come in.
Yeah.
And I think that might ease a lot of people's minds. But what I want to kind of pivot to and talk about is that it also might be indicative that LIV is really putting a big primary focus on a more international audience, right? And the reality is, with that time difference that you mentioned, there's no denying that there's going to be more people watching in a more of a prime time overseas, Europe, Saudi Arabia, where it actually is happening.
Yeah, right.
In Riyadh, so it's that could be a big part of it. And I want to talk about the next two, going over to Adelaide and what is a complete 180 of this.
Yeah, right.
Viewership. But before we do, of course, the other thing we have to talk about, and whether or not it was a low blow, whether it was warranted, Colt Knost, he's announcing from the sidelines at the Waste Management event this past weekend, and it's a clear dig. Because why else would you say it? He's there. They're in that Coliseum hole there on the 16th, and he says, there's 24,000 people in here. If I'm doing my math right, I'm paraphrasing him. That's twice as much as 12,000.
Yeah.
So, a little bit of a subtle dig or not so subtle dig, kind of saying that, there's more people on this hole than watching all of that first round of LIV.
Yeah.
What do you think that was warranted?
Oh, totally. I mean, that was a dig. I mean, it was interesting. I'm curious to see what the Adelaide versus the PGA Tour event that week and see if the script flips and there's actually more viewers for that. I'm curious to see.
Well, I know a real script flipped would be, let's see if the announcers at LIV, if so, point out how many people are watching. I don't know if that's something that they would have in real time. I highly
could see
doubt
them maybe
it.
Doing this back and forth.
It just makes me wonder though, is that a time and a place for that? Right? Because I heard a lot of people come out kind of against it and saying, listen, if there's a merger that's going to happen, the smart thing to do is to not create more of a divide.
Right.
So is it just tongue in cheek? Is it just making a joke that you can argue whether it landed well or not? That's kind of tough to say, but I do think that if we are headed towards a merger, why go there?
Yeah. Why exactly? Colt had that one lined up in the chamber.
He had that one.
Yeah, he had that one.
I mean, like I said, but if nothing else, it kind of shows just how big that headline grabber was, because many, many, many news outlets took that that 12,000 number and just ran with it. And that's why, like I said, sometimes level-headedly, whichever side of this fence you're on, or maybe you're not on either side of the fence. I think I'm seeing more and more fans who are just more, channel flippers. They're going back and forth between LIV and the PGA Tour. They're not necessarily a ride or die PGA or LIV where they're saying, I'm never going to tune into the other. So, I don't know, but either way, you got to kind of look at it and say, okay, is this just a headline grabber? And that's why I wanted to say, like, the importance of being, it's not as many people have availability to watch, and there are a lot of people tuning in other ways. Speaking of which, speaking of bigger broadcast deals, next week we've got, or this coming week, I believe it is. Adelaide, is this?
I don't know if it's this week or next week.
I'm losing track of
I don't even know where we are.
This year is going too fast, right? I know. It's like that Seinfeld. I got Happy New Year in March once.
Yep, exactly.
But regardless, there's a lot of, based on the performance last year at Adelaide, there's a lot of hope on the LIV side and a lot of indication that this is going to be something that really blows well in the direction for LIV.
Right.
So last year, Adelaide, and this also, again, I want to speak to whether or not LIV is addressing something that maybe the PGA Tour slept on for too long, which is a more international audience. Here you have in Australia, it's a clear craving for more professional golf. And the evidence of that is in 2024, the event drew over 94,000 fans.
Wow.
Also 2.7 million viewers on live TV.
Wow.
Which is significant.
Yeah,
and it
big.
just shows that this is something that fans have been waiting and craving, and why sometimes it might be way too narrow of a lens for us to look at it here domestically in the United States and saying oh, no one's watching it. Well,
Right.
to us, that's kind of turning a deaf ear to the rest of the world and what's going on there. Based on that too, importantly, based on 2024's success, you're seeing the extension of a major broadcast deal in Australia. Now, I'm not being there. I'm not from there. I'm not familiar with Australian channels. If anybody is, you guys can kind of weigh in the comments. But what I do know is that it's been picked up to broadcast again, not on some off FS2 type of channel, but instead, kind of main feature broadcast, and it's going to be broadcast across the country, all over Australia. So even though you never know, remains to be seen. If the first round, again, is on FS2, again, the huge major time difference between here and Australia, you may very well see a lot more of those headline grabbers where it's, 12,000 people tuned in, but what you're missing is the bigger reality of how many people locally. And if LIV's real mission, and it's not just tongue in cheek, is to grow the game internationally, well then, poo-pooing on what it's being viewed here in the States might be
true.
Well advised.
Yeah, I mean, and also if LIV is international and every single event is in a different country, there's always one group of viewers that are going to be left out of primetime. We can't watch Adelaide, unfortunately, because what are they, 12 hours ahead? So they'll never get it right unless now when they come to America, Fox, it'll have a much bigger number for U.S. audience, I'm sure. But primarily the PGA Tour fans are from the United States. You would agree, right? Most of the PGA Tour fans are,
I would, because I would say that the PGA Tour, like I said, even though we've seen in the past some events that are overseas, we've seen some, here and there, especially in the fall season, an Asian event mixed in, but the majority of PGA Tour events are played here in the States, which is why it's grown a very U.S.-based audience.
Yep.
And now it's that's where where LIV is taking that other model, and it's maybe a big thing is just the time change alone. It's just people aren't. We're either asleep or at work, and we can't watch
exactly.
it.
So it's actually difficult for the average PGA Tour fan living in America to consume LIV golf.
Yeah, and I think,
and it always will be. So the numbers will always be.
And I think that's where, being a person who is watching both, as much as I can,
right.
This is where I see this opportunity to finally get our head out of the sand and find a way to get a merger done. We've talked about this, episode over episode of how this needs to get done. But this is one more way and an evidence of how these two tours can live in the same world and be more collaborative, be more, kind of complementary to each other. Could the PGA Tour continue to be more U.S. focused while LIV is more international and grows fandom more internationally? Then could they have events that come together where now maybe LIV becomes the big tour overseas and an invite event that they do together with the PGA Tour brings more visibility, helps the PGA Tour's visibility overseas, and some of the events that are here in the States help bring LIV's visibility here.
Right.
Who knows? But regardless, like I said, I thought there was still evidence of a lot of contentiousness out there with the fact that this headline was run so hard.
Yeah.
And the fact that you even had on the PGA Tour broadcast, little shots and little, being taken here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot there. But the other thing I want to talk about is this other kind of like potentially, it's hard to call it a big policy change because on its surface it seems small. But it seems big to me because of the fact that it just doesn't seem any reason why LIV would make this change other than the fact that a merger is coming really soon, right? So let's do a pause there. Let's do a quick word from our sponsor, and then I want to talk about what that change is going to be.
All right, guys. FootJoy dominates when it comes to performance golf, rainwear, and their warm weather wear with Thermo Series. We're actually going out to Arizona for the first time in a couple weeks.
That's right.
And it gets cool in the morning. It gets cool when that sun goes down in the desert. So you better believe it. We're going to be packing. We're going to have layers, but I'm crossing fingers that we got short sleeves at some point on this trip because we didn't get it in Orlando. But it doesn't matter because it just goes to show you everywhere you go, you're going to get hit with cold weather or the 39 degrees we had in Orlando in January. It was nuts. So whether it's the pullover hoodie or the Thermo Series hybrid jacket, I can go on and on. There's so many options. Just go to their website and go through the whole Thermo Series lineup. Forget about checking the forecast. Just go to their website, pick out a jacket that fits you, check out the Thermo Series, and go play in any condition, anytime, anywhere.
All right, so what exactly is this major, not so major, however you want to classify it, change? Well,
this small, big news.
The small, big news that might matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As wild as this sounds, this is actually, it was first leaked by Pat Perez, and this was on the Fairway to Heaven podcast. And what he said, and kind of also confirmed by the host of saying, like, I had heard that too, but interestingly, not officially confirmed by LIV just yet. But as we know, Pat Perez has very intimate knowledge of what's happening at LIV. Mm-hmm. But it looks like the policy change that's going to be coming up real soon is that LIV is going to walk back its policy on allowing players to wear shorts, and you're going to see players all wearing pants. Okay, so I get it. It seems like, oh, great. Who cares? They're going to be wearing. They're taking away their shorts. Why I think it should be something that we care about, or at least kind of like keep an eye on, is because I can't, in my mind, see any reason why LIV would make this change, would walk that back, something that is so wildly popular with players. And on top of that, we've been talking this whole time about LIV being so international. The places that they play, you're thinking Singapore event coming up.
Yep.
You're thinking, again, Saudi Arabia, hot, warm climates. Why make their players less comfortable? Why go against what a lot? There's no player who's out there screaming for, I want to be wearing pants every single time.
Right.
The only thing that I can think of is I wonder if we are now, even though they've been quiet about it, as much as we wanted transparency, as much as we wanted to hear more about the progress, if quietly we're getting closer and closer to a merger deal and they are now into the nitty gritty fine details where they want to make sure their policies are aligned so that they can have crossover events together. Mm-hmm. Is there going to be a merger announcement and a co-sanctioned event, and they don't want it where it's a standout like a sore thumb that the LIV guys are all wearing shorts and the PGA Tour guys are all wearing pants?
Yeah, right.
Maybe I'm getting in the weeds. You guys can debate me. Let me know what you think. But I'm reading the tea leaves, and I'm thinking if this is true, there's got to be a reason, and it's got to be driven from something outside of LIV.
Yeah, I'm curious. I have no idea what this could be about. I mean, it could be. I mean, it's a good, I mean, I don't know. What are they going to walk back next? Loud music and then add a fourth round?
Well, that's just it. Like the stuff that makes them them.
Yep.
They've always struggled with this. Like they've always struggled with, even going back to official world golf rankings, like they could make the change of making a fourth round, cuts, things like that. But how much of that is them defining who they are, and how much do they want to, kind of stick to their guns there? Now, this could, you could say, is an easy change, but in the same token, they're about making players happy. They want, a lot of the draw of bringing players over was not just the money, it was making them happy and stuff like that. So it does make me wonder, like, I can't think of, and if you guys can think of something, let us know in the comments, because I can't think of another reason to walk this one back, especially with these hot events that are coming up.
I mean, it's all starting to add up. I mean, this one little silly thing about the shorts, going back to pants, you got Tiger playing with the president yesterday. You got Monahan and Scott at the White House recently. I mean, I feel like something is brewing. It's getting closer. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's the shorts thing that's going to put it.
Sure, but like, to me too, is like, I don't want to or care to see these PGA Tour guys meeting with the president. What's the point?
To me, until they tell us what's going on behind.
But the thing is, to me, if anything, is a sign of, on the PGA Tour side, weak leadership. If you can't get this deal done, and you need to start bringing in people from outside of golf to get the deal done, that to me is, we've said for a while, I think there needs to be better leadership. I want to hear in the news and read in the headlines that the PIF and the PGA Tour are having meetings.
Right. Well, they probably just don't agree, and they need outside people to help.
But what I'm saying is, how do you get to an agreement in a common place without getting to the table? And every once in a while we hear that they've met, but like, at the end of the day, like, those are the two sides that need to be at each side of the table to get this done. We can have all the internal meetings we want between, PGA Tour guys, president, whatever it may be. Get you two at the table and get this deal done.
Yeah,
but
true.
Who knows? Maybe this is indication that is actually happening, because again, I can't see any other reason why you would end up changing this one. One thing I will say though is, if they were going to get on the same page with and this is my personal opinion here, if they were going to get on the same page on this policy around shorts, and if this is really what it comes down to, I would have much preferred, and I think most players would have preferred, to see the PGA Tour adapt LIV's policy,
right,
rather than the other way around, which also makes me wonder, like, who holds the upper hand in negotiation. Again, we're really kind of speculating here. I totally get that. But players on the PGA Tour have been calling for it forever. Even if you developed a policy where, in certain, and especially if the PGA Tour wants to become more international and play in some of these hotter climates, if you came up with a policy that, if, in certain climates, or if you defined it by a certain temperature, that these guys could wear the shorts, to me, why not? And I'm on the side of the fence where, like, I'm not hating even seeing guys like Jason Day pushing the envelope.
Yeah, it really is.
If Jason Day can wear a head-to-toe sweatsuit, why can't guys wear shorts? Now, I've always loved the, whatever you want to call it, like just the degree of put together how these guys look. I think they look great out there, like with the polos and stuff like that. So I don't want to completely get away from, if you call it maybe a little bit of a dress code, maybe some boundaries, some parameters. But I do think that those parameters can be loosened up a bit and allow not only the players, but the brands as well, the opportunity to kind of, showcase what they can do stylistically, something new, and even, even attracting in a lot of ways a broader audience who may relate more to a certain style or whatever it may be. I'm thinking like younger kids who are like maybe have never worn a polo in their life, right? And they're seeing this and they're like, oh, I want to look like him. Oh, he looks more like me. Maybe I want to go out and play golf or whatever. Maybe like Jason Day, where wearing sweats. So I think if anything, I would have liked to see it go the other way.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah,
to see them adapt that. I do want to see velour tracksuit on someone at some point. Like maybe Malbon. Maybe it will be Jason Day purple velour.
Oh my God! The full, what do you call it?
Yeah.
Talk about Seinfeld.
Yeah, yes.
You could drape
myself in velvet.
I love it. But either way, like I said, I just think it was an interesting thing. It caught a little bit of a buzz over the weekend. If you missed that headline, Like I said, this came from that interview with Pat Perez, and it just seems odd to me. Maybe you just, at this point, just too much hoping for a possible merger that we're really looking for it in these indications. But other than that, I can't think of another reason why LIV would walk that one back. So we'll keep an eye on all of this. Hopefully we'll see some sort of major news coming up real soon. If so, we'll be right on top of it. So make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.